day right now. I've had a bad day.
You remember me?
Yeah, I think so. From the Forward Party.
Yeah, Forward Party. Yeah, we were trying to set up a stream with Yang and stuff. We still want to do that, by the way. You don't think that happens?
I don't think that.
Buddy, come on.
I'm sorry. Hold on.
Dude, come
Do you
on.
think?
Be reasonable.
Wait.
You're not being reasonable here.
The way to address it. That's
exact same parallel.
That's
come on. You're being, buddy. For somebody who's generally pretty objective, I would say that you're pretty objective. I feel like you're being like weirdly defensive about this.
Deliver a product that should have been done in 2 weeks. What do you mean?
Just software engineers, all right, straight out Harvard Law, and hated it, bro. She paid off her student loans and then quit and moved to China to go study kung fu because she was so burnt out. Being a lawyer sucks, bro. Like, here's another thing that I got to tell about. Like, got to say to you, honestly, Steven, as somebody who, and I want you to know this, that like, I generally have high respect for you and high regard for you, generally.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get ideas about things where you're just dead ass wrong. Boyfriend, girlfriend, dating, whatever, etc. Right? So, like, there's another one where I think like maybe.
Assalamu alaikum.
Hi.
I've actually got some.
Why are you British? Why are there so many British people with strong opinions on our political system? What the fuck?
Wait, I'm not British. I'm South African, man.
Well, aren't you? Didn't you guys come from Britain or some bullshit? Who made South Africa?
About like when was that? Like the 1800s. Anyways, I actually want some relationship advice.
This must be for disagreements.
It's gonna be a disagreement because you're gonna disagree with me. Okay, calm down.
Okay, what do you want?
Okay.
Go.
Okay. Is it a deal breaker if she's been lobotomized before, for you, from your perspective?
I don't know. It depends what she was like before, and depends on what she's like after.
Oh my god! Just answer the fucking question. Please.
No, why would you be with somebody who's lobotomized? There's like 50 million crazy health complications that come after being lobotomized. You have like strokes and seizures and all sorts of crazy shit. Your probably long-term health expectations are bad as well. Why the fuck would you be with somebody who's lobotomized? Does somebody with a functional brain want to spend time with you?
I've had a bad fucking day, right? I've had a bad fucking day. Okay, and you're fucking coming at me, and you're arguing with me, and you're shouting at me for no fucking reason. You don't understand what goes on in my brain. It's fucking complex and it's beautiful, and it's like flowers and rainbows sprouting out of fucking nothing, and it'll go right out over your.
Sounds like you need a lobotomy. Okay, what is your question?
My fucking question is I don't have a fucking question. Go fuck yourself, you piece of shit. I hope you fucking rot in hell and die, okay?
I'm gonna tell all my South African black anti-farmer friends where you live, okay? They're coming for you. They're coming for your property. What do you want? Okay. Guys, the disagreement room is only for disagreements related to the topics on stream. If you're coming here to say random things or ask random things, you're getting perma-banned, okay? Big Booty Judy. What do you want?
Steven.
Yeah.
Do you still hate In-N-Out?
Yeah.
I'm serious. It's stupid. Like.
Okay, you got banned. That guy's banned from Discord. Hello.
Hey, what's going on, buddy?
Hi. Hello.
Hey, so let's see here, man. So yeah, 2024 is coming around the corner. Do you remember me?
Yeah, I think so. From the Forward Party.
Yeah, Forward Party. Yeah, we were trying to set up a stream with Yang and stuff. We still want to do that, by the way. But I don't know if you saw. I sent you an email. Long story short, we just established the Forward Party in California, registered with the Secretary of State, had our party convention, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, what we're kind of working on right now, and this is where, I think, you've talked about this a little bit in the past, and I guess this is where the disagreement comes in. As I understand it, maybe you can clarify or whatever, but your position is that like a two-party political system is like a good system.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Okay, why is that? I'm just curious because I have some disagreements about that, but I'm curious. Can you tell me why you think that is?
I mean, why not? You've got candidates, they run in primaries, you vote. Having two parties is a little bit simpler. You don't have to form like coalitions or do any weird things like that for government. I think it works fine. Okay, so do you not think that like having a two-party system though, like really encourages, what's the word? Like division, you know what I mean? Where like people are like, it really like rewards people like to be extreme when you have like a two-party system, because it's like, if you're a candidate and you're trying to like get your party's nomination, you're going to want to be like the more extreme version of that, right? I mean, I don't think so. I think it super depends on where you live, right? Like you're going to be a lot more extreme if you're a congressman from New York than if you're like a congressman from, battleground states, right?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's the case. Like, I think that like if we look at most of the candidates that who have been getting their party's nominations, like historically have been like relatively extreme, and it seems like that problem's like only getting worse. I mean, do we disagree with that?
I think so. What do you mean relatively extreme? Like what's...
Like, so for instance, like, you know, the moderate Democrat and the moderate Republican are kind of like a dying breed, right? Now I understand, like, maybe it's a pendulum, right? Maybe it like swings one way and then it swings back a little bit, right? I'm not sure, you know, and it seems like maybe we are swinging back a little bit towards, like, I don't know, moderation. But
wasn't,
you know,
Biden considered moderate? If he's on a stage with like Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, like, wasn't Biden kind of a moderate on that stage?
Yeah, I agree. I think he is a moderate, but I think that, like, he was also not a choice that a lot of people who voted for him were not, like, excited or even, like, really wanted to vote for him, right? They just didn't have a choice because of our political duopoly.
Sure, but I mean, like, that's politics, period. You always have to vote for a person. He might not be the best person you want. Having like 7 different parties wouldn't change that, right?
Well, yeah, it would actually. I mean, that's like kind of my argument, is that I think that, you know, the problem right now, the reason why, in my opinion, that we have a, you know, 2-party political system is because of the rules of the game, right? The rules of the game dictate that every voter gets 1 vote, right? So if you can only vote for one person, and the rule of the game dictates that you have to have a 51% majority to win, then your best chance of winning for like any candidate will be to, you know, essentially try to get, you know, have one party that has 50% plus of the vote, right? You're gonna.
If you want to do like ranked choice voting or something, I'm not necessarily opposed to that. If people want to try like multi-party systems or change ranked choice voting, they should, like, try it in a state. I don't know, get a state to change their election procedure, try to throw up another party, and then change the voting way.
So you're like open to the idea that, like, maybe we should have like a little bit better electoral system than our current, like, first past the post, one vote.
I'm not a big fan of first past the post. I think ranked choice is probably cool.
Okay, cool. Awesome. That's really cool, because that's actually what I'm working on right now. So I told you I'm working with the Forward Party. I'm on the policy team on, you know, or whatever. And one of the things that we're working on is electoral reform, right? Because we are believers that we're getting too many, like, we don't like, especially in California, right? Because we live in California. And here, I mean, you used to live here, you know how this is. The Democrats essentially have like a monopoly on our political system, right? It's like they've been in power forever. And because of that, you kind of, like, if you're a candidate, you really have to toe the Democratic Party line. Like, the Democratic Party in California is incredibly powerful, and they dictate who wins and who gets elected and who gets on the ballots, like, almost unanimously. And there's almost nothing you can do about it, right? Because they have such a stranglehold on our politics here. And so and this is why, like, our politics here have been so stale for so long. If you look at, like, the city of Los Angeles, like, I was born and raised here. I love the city of Los Angeles. It's my home, right? But if you look at our city government, it fucking sucks. Our city government is, like, really awful. Like, they don't do anything, and the problem is because nobody can run against them because the Democrats have such a stronghold, right? So we really want to increase political diversity. We want to be able to, like, have, at least make it a viable option, where if you don't want to run under the support of the Democratic Party, right, that you actually still have, like, a chance to win. That, like, there's actually a world in which you could actually win, not running as a Democrat. I mean, do you have any, like, feelings about that?
People want to push ranked choice voting. I think that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, yeah, I mean, if that's something that you would be potentially interested in, you know, supporting, that's something that we're, you know, like I said, we're trying to get support. We're trying to get, like, people talking about some of these things that we can actually do to, like, really change our political systems, right? Because, you know, I think kind of everybody realizes right now that, like, things aren't moving fast enough. Right? Like, it's 2024 and we still have way too many old people in office, right? And a lot of these people, they don't understand, like I'm an engineer. I'm a self-taught, you know, software engineer. I can write code. I'm like building an app right now. We need more doctors, engineers, teachers. We need these kinds of people in Congress, not lawyers, right? And the problem is that we're just getting lawyers. And because, like I said, the establishment has a stranglehold on our political system, especially here, like, locally in California.
I mean, if people wanted, like, doctors and stuff more often, why wouldn't they just vote for them when they run for office?
They can't get the nomination. They don't get this party support.
Well, wouldn't they get the nomination if they won the primary?
So it is very difficult to win a primary without party establishment support. It's incredibly difficult.
Yeah, but people can do it, right? You can just raise money. Like, Trump didn't have any party establishment support, right?
Correct. So you can do it if you have a lot of resources, you can do it. But the problem is that requires that you have to have a lot of resources to compete with the party, and a lot of people don't. I mean, to run like even a campaign for like a local office here in like Los Angeles, it's like minimum 250,000. That's like money you got to be willing to burn.
Sure,
You
but
know
I mean,
what I
I feel like that's one. You're in LA County, 250,000. If you've been a doctor for 30 or 40 years, I think you probably have that money. I think is okay, and you can also fundraise too. If people feel like really strongly about it, shouldn't be that hard to fundraise.
I agree. I agree, and that does happen sometimes. But like I said, but like not just doctors, but like what about nurses or like teachers or people who are like on the ground level? We're working with our children, our communities and stuff. These people are not getting into office.
I don't know if these people could govern. Do you think that a nurse has the prerequisite ability to govern effectively? Is this somebody that would be like an effective politician?
Why not?
Because they don't have the necessary skill set to communicate with all the varying levels of government that they would need to, or the necessary skill set.
Do you know what nurses have to do on a daily basis? Like
take care of patients in hospitals?
Yeah, do you know how difficult that is? Like one of my friends is a labor and delivery nurse, right? And she's dealing all day with like stress, trauma, politics, bureaucracy, interpersonal communication.
Why? Just because you're
helping people,
but just because one thing is difficult doesn't mean that all difficult things are now achievable. That's like the Jordan Peterson, Elon Musk ideology.
No, but like what do you think about nursing doesn't translate to governance?
Basically all of it?
How?
I don't know if
like what do you think is important for a governor? For somebody who's going to be in governance.
An important thing for a governor, my guess is that some of the most important skills are probably going to be able to balance the wants and needs of many different parties and then communicate those wants and needs.
Okay, do you think that a nurse has to balance the wants and needs between many different parties and then communicate that?
No. I think there's probably like
multiple patients that they have to be tending to, figuring out exactly what each one of these patients needs, and then relaying that to both the charge nurse and also the attending physician. You don't think that happens?
I don't think that.
Buddy, come on.
I'm sorry. Hold on.
Dude, come on. Be reasonable. You're not being reasonable here,
do you think that a nurse has to like balance like the complaints and wants and desires of a patient, or do you think that 95% of what you see is going to have like a pretty standard treatment regimen that they are communicating between one party to the next in a way that like everybody kind of understands? Like it's not like every single patient that comes through is this dynamic case where you've got to balance like these unique and sensitive needs. You can literally
apply the exact same thing to the general public, right? The general public have wants and needs, and those fall into like some handful of categories, right?
Yeah, but the way to address it, that's
an same parallel. Come on, you're being, buddy. Here, for somebody who's generally pretty objective, I would say that you're pretty objective. I feel like you're being like weirdly defensive about this for some reason.
I'm not being weirdly defensive. It's just a nurse has no skill set that would make them good at running for public office.
Can we get a vote in the chat? Vote in the chat and find out like 1 if you think that a nurse has the adequate skill set to work in governance, and 0 if you feel that they don't.
Do you think a nurse has an effective skill set for working in governance? Yes or no? All right, I'll throw the poll in all my chats and I'll see what they say, I guess.
And then additionally, like what about teachers? Do you think teachers, would you argue the same thing, that teachers don't have the requisite skill set to work in governance?
Probably not much, no. I think that like working like as a politician or working in governance is probably a relatively unique skill set. If anything, I would say, actually, now that I think about it, if anything,
is a unique skill set that, like, how do you get that skill set?
Well, one is going to depend on your background. Lawyers actually probably are somewhat more equipped to deal with it, I guess, naturally. I think maybe that's why so many lawyers go into politics.
Exactly. That's my argument, right? Is that what happens is we end up with a government, and all of our legislators are lawyers, and that's a really bad thing, man. Like, lawyers are people who charge $500 an hour to argue with each other and are widely regarded as some of like the most despised people in our society that suck blood and defend awful people.
How could we just wait? Hold on. Wait. Hold on. How are lawyers some of the most despised people in society? Lawyers are probably some of the most important people in society, in that they ensure like the smooth functioning of our rights to due process.
Okay. Do you think that when somebody is a lawyer, that is, they are generally considered as a more honorable person or a less honorable person?
I'm sorry, considered or are?
Like
are they
general
actually, or does
perception.
the general perception is probably
Yeah, general
bad, but like
perception of
people in
lawyers.
general
Exactly.
are dumb.
Okay, why do
but,
you think that is?
Because people say dumb things about lawyers who don't know anything about law.
No, it's not. It's because a lot of lawyers are actually really shitty, bro. Let me tell you. Like, I don't know how many lawyers you've worked with. My dad was a lawyer. I have lots of family who are lawyers, and a lot of lawyers are like really shitty, and they do scummy things because they just grift. They take people like who have like lawsuits that they're trying to sue their employer, right? And what they'll do is they'll draw out the lawsuit and they'll take pretty much all the settlement money, and they'll charge up they'll send the person to their own doctors that they know that will like give them kickbacks. And, dude, let me tell you, lawyers now that's not to say all lawyers. It's like police, right? Some police are good too. Some police are like really great and some lawyers are great, upstanding, whatever. But there's also a lot of really bad.
I'm sure there are a lot of bad lawyers. That's fine. There's a lot of teachers that kids. I mean, like, I don't know what you want me to say to that. Like, lawyers as a profession, there's nothing bad about the profession of lawyers. I'm sure people have a perception of lawyers that's bad. But
lawyers are paid $500 an hour to argue, my friend.
First of all, a $500 an hour billing for a lawyer, that's an expensive lawyer, number one. Number two, they're paid because they understand the process of all the legal ins and outs of the systems that you have to navigate if you want to protect or defend your rights, or if you want to assert your rights against somebody else. Like, yeah, the system can be kind of confusing sometimes. You don't need a lawyer. You can be a pro se defendant if you want, or a plaintiff if you want. But like, yeah, it's a complicated process. But I mean, like, same thing with nurses. Like, we need nurses to like administer drugs to us because we can't do it ourselves either. Not only that, I don't have the opportunity to do a drug myself. I have to go through the whole prescription system.
Your opinion. You're going to tell me unironically that you think lawyers are the best, are good qualified people to be determining our legislation.
I didn't say that. I said that lawyers probably are one of the classifications of people or jobs that have like the prerequisite skill set to be effective, like leaders in politics, probably.
Effective or to acquire the job, right? Because there's a difference between being able to get the job and being able to
as in able to balance the wants and needs of multiple parties and then convey these in ways that make sense to their constituents and everything else. Yeah, that skill set is probably like overlaps with being a lawyer quite a bit, would be my guess.
Okay, so do you think that this is why I think, like, I don't know, I think that you're just dead ass wrong, truthfully. Like, I think that like being a lawyer actually is actually worse. It actually makes it makes you a less qualified candidate, because what you do is you come into the profession with a mindset of legalese, right? With a mindset of like, oh, we got to over-engineer this thing, and we got to be super like technical about blah 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 blah, instead of actually trying to just solve the problems of the people that you're governing.
Yeah, I think right? that's a nice thing to say, but like over-engineering. You say over-engineering. Processes are really important. You said that you work in software development. Have you worked for a large software company before?
Yes.
Okay, well, like what you're talking about right now sounds like every single like junior dev, like year 3 in college, like idealistic approach to software development. Like, we should be able to write whatever code we want and publish it immediately, and I want all of this in production right now, and I want to see how it works, blah, 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 blah.
That is not
as opposed to, as opposed to there are processes, there's a reason why everybody adopts these frameworks and why we do 2-week sprints and why everybody has to sign off on everything before it goes through, and why there's so much procedure. It's because we've learned after doing software for 20 or 30 years that everybody's throwing whatever the fuck they want into a project and seeing how it works is a horrible fucking way to scale up technology, right? So the same exact thing that exists as people that work in software engineering rediscover all of engineering, which is really what it has been, that for all of other engineering or for legal processes or for politics, yeah, it's important to do everything by the letter, because if you just have good ideas but you don't know how to implement them, or you don't know how to write the laws or do the procedures as they're supposed to be done, everything just falls apart because all you have is a bunch of ideas and no ways to like realistically implement them.
Okay, so your argument is that the only people who can implement these ideas are lawyers themselves?
I didn't say they're the only people that can implement them. I just said that their skill set probably overlaps with the needed skill set to be an effective politician.
Okay, so I don't necessarily I kind of like disagree. So I disagree that I agree that it overlaps with some skills that could be useful to be a politician, but I don't agree that it's required, right?
I don't think it's required. Anybody could be. The guy that I supported in Omaha for mayor was a teacher. I don't think it's required.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, is that I think that if you look at our best governors, right, our people who are our best governors are not lawyers, right? There are teachers, there are nurses, there are engineers, there are, like, if I could choose for the U.S. government, for all people in Congress to be one profession, it sure as shit would not be a lawyer, bro.
What would it be?
It would probably be engineer.
Why?
Because engineers are problem solvers. They're paid,
Engineers
like,
are
lawyers.
literally code monkey retards that if it wasn't for middle management would take you 10 years to deliver a product that should have been done in 2 weeks. What do you mean?
Just software engineers, all right, asshole. I'm talking about all engineers. I'm talking about mechanical engineers, electrical engineers. I'm talking about people who do civil engineering. I'm talking about engineers. An engineer is a
Well, listen,
mindset,
what is a lawyer besides a legal engineer? Isn't that what they are at the end of the day?
A lawyer is a specialist in they do use a lot of logic. So there is some engineering, but it's like that's actually like a really good analogy. I mean, they kind of almost are like a legal engineer.
A little bit. I mean, isn't Andrew Yang a lawyer? Wasn't he an attorney?
Well, he went to law school, but he went for, he was a lawyer for like 3 months and then quit because he realized it's a shitty profession, which I kind of did the same thing. Okay. Like I did pre-law and then I was going to go to law school and I realized it's a shitty profession. I didn't go. So.
What do you mean by a shitty profession? I don't understand what you mean by shitty profession. Do you think that defending our rights is important in the United States?
Oh yeah, I think it's absolutely important.
Do you think that lawyers facilitate that?
Oh, absolutely. Look. The respectable public defenders and the defenders of our constitutional freedoms. Look, I respect the hell out of those guys, but it doesn't mean that it's like a great. There are some people who will wake up every day and who will love that fucking job. I get it, but like generally, being a lawyer is not a good profession. Like I said, I did pre-law at UCLA. I graduated with I did mock trial for 3 years there, right? So a lot of my friends from college are now attorneys. And of my friends, they're probably like 15 or 20 of them that graduated from law school and became attorneys. Something like 4 or 5 or 6 of them have left law. Okay? And these are like UCLA, these are like people who went to Penn, fucking Penn and like Yale and like, good college. Like my best friend, one of my best friends from college, Lena, went to Harvard Law, worked at a law firm for 3 years, worked at Latham and Watkins, and here in downtown LA, making $250,000 a year, straight out of Harvard Law, and hated it, bro. She paid off her student loans and then quit and moved to China to go study kung fu because she was so burnt out. Being a lawyer sucks, bro. Like, here's another thing that I got to tell about. Like, got to say to you honestly, Stephen, as somebody who, and I want you to know this, that like I generally have high respect for you and high regard for you, generally.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get ideas about things where you're just dead ass wrong, and you need to take a step back and think about it for a second. Like, for instance, like e-commerce, right? You think that all e-commerce is a sham. It's not, bro. Like, you don't even understand what e-commerce is generally. Like, I worked in e-commerce for 10 years. E-commerce generally, if you have a real e-commerce business, you're importing a product. Generally, you're working with suppliers in China or somewhere overseas. You're getting that product over on, in containers, 40-foot containers. You're warehousing the product, and then you have to have some kind of warehouse management system, and then you have to figure out like how you're going to fulfill that product when the orders come in. This is a real e-commerce business. Now there are dropship businesses, and you might be talking sometimes about dropship businesses, and those are whatever bullshit, whatever. And some of those, you're right. Like some of those guys are full on scam artists, right? But yeah, so whatever, that's fine. But like all I'm saying is that like I wish that sometimes you would like maybe have a little bit more open mind about what some of these things are.
What things are?
Like when somebody tells you that something, I think sometimes you get an idea about something and you just stick to that idea really hard without like really trying to be open about reconsidering if you're wrong about it.
What's like an example of that?
So an example of that would be, like I said, I just gave you that example about what e-commerce is, right? You've said multiple times that e-commerce is all bullshit. It's all bullshit.
Because usually when I'm talking about e-commerce, I'm usually talking about like red pillars that are selling people the idea of getting rich doing drop shipping.
Exactly. You're talking about drop shipping, right? So this is wrong. You don't conflate the two, because e-commerce is a legitimate business, and a lot of Fashion Nova is an e-commerce business. They're worth $1 billion, and they do tons of work, right? So it's important that we get things right. Like our language matters, whatever.
Have I ever said e-commerce is bullshit? I feel like I generally just attack like drop shipping or people that are selling you e-commerce. Isn't Amazon e-commerce? Do you think I think that Amazon is bullshit?
No, but you've said many times that e-commerce stuff is bullshit.
but it's drop shipping, and you're right. Some of the drop shipping stuff is really bullshit. But like, there's different. And then also, like yesterday, I was hearing you talking about, boyfriend, girlfriend, dating, whatever, etc. Right? So like, there's another one where I think like maybe you're a little wrong on this. Is that like I think that there's a point where you've been on a few dates, right? And you're right. Like, yeah, you've been on a few dates, and then there's dating, which is like, okay, we've been on a few dates, and I want to keep going on more. But I might also be going on some dates with a couple other people, right? So it's like, oh, I'm dating this person, and maybe I'm also dating this person. So I'm kind of dating, one or two people right now, right? But you're kind of narrowing it down. And then there's boyfriend, girlfriend, where it's like, okay, I've kind of decided that, I want to focus my time and energies on this person. And, they're going to be like my kind of like main, source of energy. How do you feel about that?
I don't think I have hugely strong opinions on the boyfriend-girlfriend dating thesaurus arguments, but I will.
Okay, cool. But like, all I'm saying is that, again, I feel
was
like
there like a position of substance that you feel like I took a strong position on and am unwilling to move, or was it on the dictionary definitions of e-commerce versus dropshipping? Or
no, well,
what
so
it means
one
to
of
be
the ones that I
dating,
think one of the ones that I think that's of substance is that I really think that I think that it's important that our governors, that our legislators be comprised of more than just lawyers.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think having
Okay, and I think that we should try to create systems that encourage more than just lawyers to be elected into positions of governance.
Okay. Yeah, then I think that you should, we should push for those things to happen at local levels or maybe even at a state level and then see how it goes from there before trying to reform the entire American federal election system. But yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was getting at, right? Is that like we need to have a system that allows people who are not just establishment lawyers to get elected.
Mm-hmm. Right? Okay, sure.
So the problem is that our current two-party system doesn't allow for that. And that's what I'm circling back around to. Is that
then I think that in some local there should be some precinct, maybe not LA because it's so expensive, where people should try to like pilot multi-party systems or coalition governments at some local level, and then maybe even get it to the state level if it works. Yeah.
I mean, is that something that you'd be in support of that?
I would champion other people doing it. I'd say, yeah, go for it. See what happens.
Okay, cool. I appreciate that because that's one of the things that we're working on. Is like we're big believers that like we need to have a little more political diversity. Like when you go to McDonald's, it's not like you just get to choose between Coke and Pepsi, right? They have like multiple different flavors, right? They got Sprite, Fanta, Dr. Pepper, whatever. Like people, I feel like should have more than just Democrat or Republican on the ballot. They should have a few different. Maybe there's whatever. But unfortunately, because you need 51% of the vote, that's something that doesn't like happen.
Sure. Well, right now your diversity of candidates comes into your primary process, but
yeah.
If you, but listen, try it at a state or city level, get multiple parties and see how it goes. And go from there. Yeah.
Cool, man. All right. Well, anyway, that was it. I know that you were a fan of the two-party system. And so I just wanted to see if you had reconsidered that, like maybe a two-party system is not the best solution for us to but I mean, it seems like you still support it, like federally at least.
I just don't have super strong opinions about it. I think it does what it needs to do. I don't think it's like the worst thing in the world. But I also don't think that like switching to a coalition government would like fix or even slightly help any of the problems in our country. But if people want to try it, I mean, that's why we have so many different states and so many different, counties where people can, try their projects and see if they work. And then if they work, I imagine they'll float up to the city, state, and then federal level. Yeah.
Cool, man. All right, dude. Well, anyway, that was it. I appreciate you. Hope you be well. Happy New Year. And take it easy.
Yeah, have a good one.
All right, peace.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Agamemnon, what is up?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing very good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Nice. Do I have to talk about what you just talked about with the guy, or can I bring my own topic?
No, this is supposed to be for disagreements on J6 shit. You're about to bring up some totally random shit.
No, I am. You were recently you were like criticizing like conservatives, right?
Yeah.
Don't you feel like you're ostracizing them a little bit?
I hope so.
Okay. No, but I saw some like shows that you were on, and you were like talking about how you want to bring conservatives, how you want to like convert them to being like left, but now you're like shitting on them constantly. Are you like afraid?
Yeah, there's a careful line that I walk. I don't actually treat everybody like they're fucking 4 years old all the time. I only do it like 90% of the time. Yeah, sometimes I mean towards conservatives. I disagree with them. I'm also mean towards leftists and communists when I disagree with them. Yeah, I mean sometimes. I don't understand the point is to come in like, don't you think that when you said that one thing, after you basically like carried water and sucked of fucking Republicans for 100 days, remember when you were really mean on day 101? Like, don't you think that's really bad? Like, I don't understand the point of this question. Yeah, sometimes I'm mean, sometimes I say, yeah, well, I don't know what you want me to say. I'm not nice all the time to everybody. Everybody does dumb shit all the time.
You want to be an asshole, and I like it. I think it's pretty based. But like, you were like saying in some podcast that you want to like convert people. And
yeah, I do. That's part of my goal. I think of all the left-leaning people in the entire fucking world on YouTube, I think I do more than anyone else. Is there any other left-leaning person that reaches as many conservatives as I do? Can you give me one of them?
What? No.
Okay, then I think I'm doing an okay job. All right, I think I'm doing an okay job. I get mad sometimes. I do.
Shit.
Yeah, because I'm going over the attempted fucking coup of our country and some of the worst, most deplorable behavior probably of any president in the history of the entire United States.
Yeah,
and conservatives want to set them up for it. So yeah, it's a little bit irritating. But you know what? I can get irritated every now and then. It's okay. My goal is not to be the nicest person 100% of the time in every single fucking size, shape, and form. Blah blah blah. That's not my goal. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But well, that's it. Thank you very much. Then I'll leave. Goodbye.
Okay. Love you.
Bye. Love you.
I'm clicking the play button and it's not doing anything. Oh, God. Do you think that... Is InfoWars the one that's, like, officially hosting or displaying the debate? I just got an email from an InfoWars guys for clips talking about January 6th. We're putting together the most comprehensive and inclusive video compilation to start running an hour before the debate kicks off. No, maybe it's just because they're streaming on their platform as well. This is a bad take from Destiny. This is an elitist take based on broad assumption skill sets of a wide range of the workforce. I'm sure that different people can like contribute to government in different ways. I'm just saying that like I think the challenge of government is that there's not clearly a right way to do things, right? Like a nurse needs to give some medication to somebody who's, sick. It's that you're balancing out like what do your voters want, what's possible, what do the other politicians want that you have to negotiate with? Like that sort of politicking probably overlaps decently, my guess would be, with like a lawyer's job, right? A lawyer's got a defendant or a client, I should say. They want a particular thing. The lawyer has to balance that out with, well, what's legally possible. They have to develop like a theory for the case. And then they've also got to work with like the prosecutor. They've got to work within the bounds of the law. They've got to work with the judge, right? All these, like, it's probably like a similar-ish skill set, more so than like a nurse or a doctor. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that nurses or doctors can't be politicians. I'm sure they could be. I'm sure some of them are really good at it. The real question is whether or not politicians would make good nurses. I want Hillary Clinton to be my nurse. What about the more executive positions in schools like deans or hospital managerial staff? Yeah, those guys. Would you be more okay with that? I'd be okay with anybody. Anybody who wants to run can run. I'm not like saying they're not allowed to run. I'm just saying like you'd have like different skill sets. But yeah, like a principal of a school, that might be a guy that does have like a skill set that would be more apt towards that. Or like the administrator or the chief executive of like a hospital might have like more experience there, right? Sure. But not every lawyer would make a good politician, and I'm sure there are a lot of non-lawyers that would make good politicians, okay? Do you think you exhibit enough skills to become a politician? No. Because my voters end up wanting some dumb shit, and I would say, you guys are retarded. Just let me do my job, and then I get put out of office, or I get recalled.
There was some sociologist in the 90s, or whatever the hell she does, a studier of human behavior who made the point that historically, evolution-wise, we as human beings are not accustomed or hardwired to interact with more than like 120 people at any given time.
Is that true?
That's true. That if you're in a prehistoric community or you're in a medieval community or all the way up through the 20th century, like 120 people is about the most people that you have in your life that you have regular contact with at any
Maybe
at
I'm
any
number
given time.
121 in
and
yours.
now, all of a sudden, like that. We're talking to everyone all over the world, and we can't handle it, and it's making
How
us...
late are you streaming tonight? Hopefully until at least 9. I think tentatively going forward, I think my hours, I'm trying to do like 1 to 9. 8 hours a day. Hopefully it gives me enough time in the morning and night to take care of all my shit so that I don't have to feel like I skip full days like catching up or whatever. That's kind of like roughly where we're at right now. We'll see how it goes.
us crazy, and it's ruining everything. And there was a U.S. general who put it, I can't remember what the guy's name was, that it used to be that every village had their idiot, and that was fine because you could, have a laugh. But now all the village idiots can talk to each other,
right,
and they can form a big village idiot convention. And that's why we're in so much trouble.
It's really accurate.
And it really does bring me back to Christmas because...
Why am I being linked this? Are you quoting that I made up the we're only supposed to have about 100 friends thing? I'm probably citing the same thing he is.
Hagrid? Hagrid's cool. I like Hagrid. Who else you like?
Yeah.
Who else Harry Potter you like? Do you like anyone else Harry Potter?
Like Professor Snape.
Oh, I don't like Professor Snape.
Professor Snape was.
I don't like him. He's gay.
Talk.
He's gay. They told me he's gay in a book I read.
Let me roast
and then they did that. Apparently he wanted to fuck Dumbledore. I don't like gay. Okay, who?
You look like Dumbledore is gay, so.
Dumbledore and Snape are gay. They fuck. They're boyfriend girlfriend. They have sex each other. They have Potter in book. I read book.
Yeah.
I can read really good.
Okay. Mad Magneto. What's up?
Right. Oh, hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'm not sure if you were still going on this. I was in the channel with other folks. Are you of the mindset where the insider trading topic when it comes to Congress people isn't really an issue, or is it more that there aren't mechanisms in place that can really solve the
I don't
issue?
really think it's an issue. I haven't been shown anything compelling that shows me it's an issue.
Okay. So in the situation where it is an issue, and let's say every, conspiracy theorist that says, oh, everyone's like George Santos, everyone fucking like just takes advantage of their position. What do you think the mechanism would be to stop that? Because I think the problem
as soon as you enter Congress or you're elected to a position of a sufficiently high level, all of your investments are put into a blind trust where you can't have any direct involvement over the trades that are being executed.
But the problem with that, and I agree with that as a solution, the problem is, what is the likelihood of that ever happening? Because it's a bipartisan issue. It's not necessarily like Democrats are going to perform.
I don't know what the likelihood of anything's happening. That wasn't a question. I don't know. They said it separate. I don't care. That's not what we're talking about right now. Is that all you want? Is the blind trust thing, or what? Yeah, I don't know what the likelihood of anything happening is.
I'm more carrying on the conversation that we had in the channel earlier, just so like we could get more feedback from you on it. Most of the statistics that I've seen point to agreeing with you. It's just interesting because if a problem were to arise where there are more and more Congress people or senators or whatever, it seems like there aren't really mechanisms in place to put them, in a real troublesome situation. It's scary in the sense that like, oh yeah, these people could ostensibly do insider trading, have access to information either through subpoenas and their own powers or whatever, where they would never get in trouble. I'm not saying it should be a priority. It's just an interesting problem. Okay, the main thing that I think I wanted to ask your agreement on is, do you think that the current stance that the Biden administration has towards Israel is productive at this point? I was initially for the ground invasion in the standpoint that effectively the Biden administration is going in. They are trying to hold Israel's hand to make sure that they're not acting in a destructive way to prolong the conflict in a larger scale war. However, that seems to be the opposite right now. So
I think they're doing about as well as they can. I don't know what they could do different. Yeah, but I don't have strong opinions. Also, that's not what this room is for right now. I was talking about Israel and Biden. That's for J6 shit.
I'm sorry. I was in a different conversation that was completely irrelevant. You can take me off.
Love you.
Love you too.
Listen, okay, if you're in here, it's because you disagree with me on some J6 shit, and that's what you're coming here to fight with. Not devil's advocate, not on some random shit, okay? All of you, if you come in and it's not about that, I'm gonna f your mom, and I'm gonna impregnate her, and then I'm gonna kill her. Wax, you're up.
Listen, I thought it was anything on stream. I didn't realize it was...
Melt Mods, you're up. Beardermeyer, you're up.
Okay, in regards to January 6th,
the argument about like he can technically declassify documents, like would it be like actual argument that you would like entertain if he wasn't like clearly like hiding the documents when they asked for them and clearly knew that they were classified still?
What is the question? Would it be illegal if he didn't know?
No, the argument that he could technically, because he's in control of declassification, if he can control it, like
maybe he could have, but it doesn't matter. His charges also extend to like obstruction of justice and retaining national defense secrets that he doesn't have the authorization to do. So,
yeah. Also, I think you have that argument. I don't know if you still hold it with scientists and people in academia that they don't know how to explain stuff properly. Do you think it kind of connects to J6? Because I personally didn't know it was as insane as it was.
Yeah, I think the issue I gave on stream is that because we've been drip-fed information for so long, and especially because people like MSNBC, the media wants to hype up every single thing that comes out, that when crazy shit does come out, nobody cares anymore, and we've all been like inoculated against caring. So
yeah, that's it. Okay, so yeah, that's about it. So thank you. See ya.
no more foreigners. Okay, Americans only. Should I put a call out on Twitter? Should we sign the not sign the alarm, sound the alarm, show the bat signal? Tanif, what do you got?
Hey, I had a question. Has your position on the president sending troops to the January 6th, the National Guard, changed since your debate with Pisco?
Yeah, I think he should have been at least like checking in more actively to see what was going on. Yeah, since it seemed to be there were a lot of breakdowns or failures that he was being made aware of, and he failed to act on any of it. I don't even think that was an accident, though. I think it was intentional the entire time, because now, not only was he aware of it and he failed to act, and not only did people ask him to act and he explicitly didn't, apparently him and his little crony loser squad were making calls to senators and congressmen trying to like, hey, shit's pretty fun. Are you sure you don't want to delay the vote some more? So yeah, him.
No, yeah, for sure. But couldn't a strong argument be made that he should be removed from the whole situation because it's against his personal interest to get involved, basically. Can't think of the word.
Against the personal, like a conflict of interest?
Yes, conflict of interest. It's in a conflict of his own interest.
It can't possibly be a conflict of interest for the president of the United States, who is also like the one in charge of National Guard deployment on DC, because there's no governor, right? That can't be a conflict of interest. That's literally his job.
No, I agree. Like, he's a terrible president, but him sending the National Guard would be a conflict of interest in that, like, the reason they're there could be conflicting on if they should be.
If somebody wants to make that argument, I would gladly have them do it. If you want to, if not you intentionally, or not you personally, but if somebody wanted to make the argument that the government can't send the National Guard because he would use it to coup the government, so he's not allowed to, that would be a phenomenal argument to make in person. So,
for sure. I mean, yeah, I don't think that the National Guard should have been there, but
well, then of course
they should have been there. Yes, they should have been there to stop it. Sorry, not to side with Trump. Follow-up question on it though is, even if he's like fully indicted as a criminal, like let's say he killed somebody on 6th Street right now, and was convicted as a murderer, do you think people should still be able to vote for him though? Even if it's like widely known, there's no question on it.
I 1,000,000% when it comes to this issue, I just defer to whatever the law says. So I think you can vote for presidents that are felons, right? The question isn't whether it's a felon. Right now, for where people are going to debate on the 14th Amendment, is the question is whether or not he broke an oath to the Constitution by doing insurrectionist activity after pledging an oath to the Constitution. I feel like that should be disqualifying. Like, philosophically, I think I kind of agree with it. But in terms of how it's written and the execution of that, I don't know if I agree with that. And the Supreme Court's probably going to rule against it. I'll read their opinions on it, and then I'll have a stronger opinion after reading our preeminent legal scholars. But, yeah.
Well, I know, like, adjacent to some of the positions you had on Israel and Palestine with moving citizens into an area and changing the demographics, like, if it was entirely U.S. demographic, should they be able to vote for someone who wanted to dissolve America?
I mean, the reality is you're going to need some safeguards that make it so people can't do certain things. What you're really asking, in my opinion, is it's another variation of the question of, should a man be allowed to sell himself into slavery, right? And it's like, well, you've got like
It's like
slavery is
that.
illegal and you've got like rights and all this. And it's like, okay, well, don't you also have the right to revoke those rights? And the answer is, in a well-functioning government, probably no. Like there's probably
not.
some things that you need to have like restrictions against. Yeah.
Okay. Well, cool. Best of luck to you.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks for talking. Yeah, bye.
Meh.
Hello.
Hello.
So, argument or disagreement is so I think you said this previously, where you said that in the case that Donald Trump does not believe that he is breaking the law and doing the actions or legal loophole that he attempted to do, it would no longer be an insurrection. Do you still hold that position?
I don't know if I've ever had or stated a strong position on the insurrection. I still actually don't even know like what the fucking insurrection is technically. So restate the thing in broader terms.
Sure. Ignoring the January 6th physical violence.
Yeah.
For the legal, I guess, loophole that we could say that Donald Trump was attempting to use in order to circumvent the counting of the votes.
Yeah.
You would say that, well, I thought I heard you say it, but maybe not the case, that is reason enough to be accused of insurrection activities.
It's definitely an attempted coup for sure. I remember somebody they said something like an insurrection needs violence. I don't know if that's true or not. If an insurrection needs violence, then definitionally, I would say I guess not. But I mean, it was definitely like an attempted coup for sure. 1 million billion %.
Would you say that it would be a coup if he truly believed the election was stolen?
Yes.
Okay, then. So he was just, do you still believe that Donald Trump was either lying or feigning ignorance or something along those lines?
I think he was lying. I think he knew the election was lost. I think he was knowingly making false claims.
Okay, then. That's what I want to challenge you on. What do you think are the grounding positions of that, I guess, statement that Trump is knowingly lying or knowingly thinks that the election was lost?
Because Trump was asking people to do investigations into election fraud. Why would he ask them if he didn't trust their ability to figure information out that he would believe in? And every time he asked somebody to dig something up, when it didn't agree with him, he just went to somebody different to try to find somebody that would agree with him. I think that demonstrates that he knew that the claims were bullshit. He continued to make false claims after being directly contradicted, and for some of these shown direct evidence that the claims were false. Giuliani, his number one little crony henchman, has admitted now in courts that some of these claims were false. So I just think there's no world where Donald Trump didn't know that he was making false claims. He had no evidence or reason to believe any of the things that he did, and everybody that he trusted around him to tell them if they were true or false, even people that were incentivized to tell them they were true, like people that would remain in office or be in office, like all disagreed with him. So there's no world in which Donald Trump doesn't know that he's lying about the election.
So I would argue that there are certain instances in which you can expect a large number of false claims to be made, but still may have an actual case. It could entirely be the case that 500 false claims or 10,000 false claims were made about the election. But if you keep on digging, it could potentially be the case that you come up with enough votes that were flipped in one area or another area where you could have potentially won the election just because you prove that.
That's not what Donald Trump was saying, that it could potentially be. He was saying they've already found him. 250,000 false votes were done in Pennsylvania, 200,000 votes here, 10,000. He was already claiming it. That it was not true.
That's true. He was going off of false information that was being reported at the time. And he did have people investigate that false information. And I can even admit that he's continued to spread lies after the fact. But there were claims within those claims, I think, that were still hotly contested for a long time past the initial claim of problems, where if he harped on those, he may have had plausible deniability because he could look at those and say, oh, I might be right on this claim and this claim. What else are they lying about?
Okay,
so
what would it take to demonstrate that Donald Trump was like knowingly lying? What would you have to see?
I'd probably have to see something like the Tucker Carlson clips, right? Where in a back room, he was talking to somebody and he was saying, oh, these claims about the voting machines are complete bullshit. I don't even know why we're,
Okay, so do you think that's a reasonable standard? Do you think that you're a reasonable human being when you're telling me the only possible way to prove a state of mind here is that you need a confession? And then also a second, wait. Before you answer that question first, can you acknowledge that what you're asking for is not a burden that's needed to convict beyond a reasonable doubt in any criminal court in the United States? That we absolutely, in no part of the U.S. do you require a confession to ascertain criminal intent or state of mind. You acknowledge that, right?
Yes, I do acknowledge that.
Yeah, so then the second thing would be like, do you think it's fair that we need a confession to ascertain Trump's state of mind?
No, I don't think it's fair to demand a confession. You just asked me for something that could convince me, and I'd say that convinced me right off the bat.
Well, sure, but I'm asking, like, what's the minimum standard? Like something reasonable, yeah.
So the minimum standard would be, this would be going back in time. Like, let's say he had all of these cases thrown out, and then all of them, like every single one of them, was just thrown out in court, and there was no more hotly contested information coming out. And so the courts just said, we threw out every single case, nothing was even remotely met standards of evidence, and all of the individual claims that were being made by other people were also being thrown out of court. So
that's how many of Julie? Can somebody check how many there were? Was it 61 lawsuits, Trump campaign? Were every single one of these thrown out prior to January 6th? Oh no, it was 62 lawsuits. I'm trying to figure out when the last one of these was dropped. Filing
to be
let's
clear,
say real quick. Let's say that it was the case that every single one of these cases was dismissed before or withdrawn before January 6th. Would that change your mind on any of these, or?
Well, this is always the hard part when it comes to this, because what he would then argue is they needed to be able to present evidence to the courts, and his argument would just be, we didn't get the chance to properly present evidence.
You do get the chance when you're going to the judge to submit your case. You have to show that you have reason to believe that you can win your case. You have to show a little bit of evidence up front. They couldn't even get over that bump, which is like stage 1 in any lawsuit. That's their fault.
That is their fault. I'm not going to say that, oh my God, it's so. This is a hard one, right? Because I understand exactly what you're talking about in the case that, okay, we've got election claims in someplace like Arizona or Georgia. A judge is being told, hey, we want you to flip the results of election or basically issue an entire election. What breadth of evidence does an individual need to meet in order to actually have them weighing on election claims? It's probably like an insane burden of evidence that's being put on that person. But
they don't need the evidence to prove it. They just need the evidence in front of a judge to show there's a case here, and they should be allowed to proceed with the case.
There were, I guess, multiple cases that did, I guess, stay ongoing. And there.
I think there are there might be 2 or 3 apparently. There's a couple DC cases that are on. Going. Wait, black voters in Detroit have accused the Trump campaign of attempting. Oh wait, these aren't the ones I'm looking for. Fuck. Can somebody find me like a thing for the ongoing? I just want to see for the Trump lawsuits if all these ended before January 6th. The problem is that like a lot of the claims that they were making for the Trump campaign, they were literally like circus claims. It was like we saw a YouTube video, like that was the claims, or it's like an affidavit for some guy, or prima facie they're like saying that like, oh, like the observers weren't allowed here, and it's like that's not even part of the law. And then another problem with a lot of these cases is when you go to a court. After you've proved you're an injured party, you've got standing, after you show evidentiary reasons why you should be allowed to take a case to court, you also have to ask for a remedy. What are you seeking from the court, right? Like, what do you want the court to do? The remedies that the Trump lawsuits were seeking were insane. Some of the remedies were like, we think that some of the signatures here might be missing on some of these envelopes. We want you to throw out 80,000 votes. That remedy is wild. No court is going to grant that ever. That's insane. So a lot of these lawsuits were set up to fail from the beginning. Even if they did pass on evidentiary grounds, I don't know if because of the remedies they were seeking, they would have even made it to court ever, because they just would have thrown out like, this is insane. Like, it just seems like all of these court cases were jokes. I don't understand how we can have so many different claims and like maybe 1 or 2 are ongoing. You're like, well, that's a good faith. Yeah, I mean, like he probably thinks something is wrong. Like, how did he lose so many other cases though? Like,
well, he lost a lot of cases because of exactly what you're talking about. He wanted the election to be overthrown, right? He wanted everything to be turned back, and you need like an insane amount of evidence to reach that.
Yeah.
I guess the problem that we're getting lost in the weeds in, right, is he might be trying to reach this insane level of standard of evidence, And in reality, in his mind, he thinks he's sure to win because, oh my God, you know, the election was stolen. I can dig and I can find this information.
Okay. I'm gonna do. Okay, we're not in court, so I will do character evidence.
Yeah,
okay.
go for it.
Do you think that Trump thought that he was allowed to f that porn star and cheat on his wife?
Yeah, sure.
Well, no. Well, I mean, like allowed as in like he knew he was cheating. It was bad, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think Trump knew it was probably bad to like talk about being able to grab women by the pussy and you know they just let you do it because he's like a celebrity?
Yes.
Right. Like we have like a ton of character evidence of Trump being kind of a piece of shit, like knowingly being a piece of shit. He paid hush money to Stormy Daniels so that she wouldn't say anything publicly, right? Like we know that he's a piece of shit. We know that he's done a bunch of piece of shit things. We look at all of his election claims and most of them are bullshit. And people are telling he's bullshit. Like at what point can we just look at it and be like, yeah, Trump's probably a piece of shit. And he knew this. Like it's super obvious. Like these defense claims or like running defense where I'm claiming that like, well, maybe he truly didn't know despite everything. Like he literally concocted a whole scheme to steal the election with the elector thing. He concocted a whole scheme for that. Do you think he did that because he really, truly, genuinely believed that every single court just happened to be against him? Every single election commissioner, Raffensperger, all these people that are lifelong Republicans, his own Department of Justice, his own campaign officials, his own friends in Congress, his own White House senior counsel, his own legal teams, his own staff, his own acting attorney, all these people just all happened to be against him that all stood to gain from him winning the election? Like, are we really going to say that's Trump's state of mind, that maybe he genuinely still thought it?
I mean, you're right. There are a long list of names that you can point out and you can say, hey, these people all disagreed with Trump. But once again, we can go to, okay, he had reasonable suspicion of people he thought were close to him because prior things that happened during his presidency. I mean, he had generals lying to him about troop numbers in Syria, for Christ's sake.
I don't even know if that's 100% true.
Wait, didn't they literally admit to that?
I think that was that a statement from Milley where it's like sometimes we wouldn't tell him shit. I would have to go and look at. I need to see the exact context of the quote. That sounds to me like they're just like briefing him and they're saying some random shit or whatever. But like, I seriously doubt that if Trump was trying to dig for particular information, that they're like actually concealing and doing some like devious, crazy shit. Like Trump was still cutting deals with the Taliban, right? The Doha agreements. Trump was still, he bombed an airfield in Syria in response to some shit. He still made decisions about, pulling troops out of northern Syria, related to the Kurds and all that. Like. So it seems like he still had like a handle on foreign policy. Maybe sometimes they talked about they just weren't saying everything or whatever, but I would need to see more quotes of that. I'm curious, but
yeah, I'd like to get your opinion on it if it does turn out that there were cases where people were directly lying to him about the cases.
If people were directly lying to him, that would be pretty bad. Like not telling him the full story on some things, like lies of omission there. I don't know if that's necessarily the same thing. Like directly lying, I would say you should probably be prosecuted. If you're literally telling lies to the commander in chief about like military shit that he has direct control over, you should probably face. I think that's illegal. Was it illegal? I'm not sure actually. Actually, I don't know if that's illegal to tell that kind of lie. I'm not sure, but something should probably happen.
Yeah, and I guess I want to kind of flush out this position because I think we hopped around a little bit.
Sure.
I guess the initial the position that I'm making when stepping back a little bit to the court cases is I think that you have you're beyond a reasonable doubt able to defend the point that I don't think many of these cases should have even gotten there necessarily as far as Trump wanted them to get inside of the courts.
Mm-hmm.
But the burden of evidence required in order to get those types of claims to the courts because he was literally trying to overturn an election is a lot higher than the burden of evidence that you'd have to, I guess, convince me that he didn't truly believe it to be the case. So, for example, I'd say I'm pushing like near above a 50% mark. I'm thinking like 60-40. He probably actually believed all that shit that he was, puffing himself up about. And he took, and the reason that he was willing to do these really destructive court cases rather than trying to apply to like lesser charges, I think that in and of itself is a little bit, not necessarily like convincing evidence, but a little bit of a point to he was probably telling himself, oh, I've got these things in the bag, they're going to give me discovery, I'm going to be able to go in and win and get this election overturned as if it was somehow a shooting in the bag. I think that those are the actions that may point to the idea that he truly believed he had lost the election and that he was going to be able to, his mental state at the time, if that makes sense.
If I grant you all of this, if I were to grant a conservative all of this, I don't know if you're concerned, but if I were to grant somebody all of this, I would say that Trump needs a caretaker at that point. If he can be like this deluded about a particular fact of the matter, I think he needs like permanent round-the-clock care to make sure that he doesn't like wander into traffic because he thinks he can fly or something. Because it's just like, It's so much, I think. Like, I can understand, like, a random person who watches the news, like you watch Tucker Carlson all the time, that person might think, not you, I'm sorry, when I say you, I mean generally, then they might believe something, but he's the president of the United States. He has access to more intelligence than any individual in the history of all of mankind. Like, there's no excuse for him to be this delusional and everything. I just don't buy it. Yeah.
All right. I guess I'd say I'd have to look into it more. I know the troop thing with the generals was like a big red flag to me, but I think I'm going to dig into what other things could have happened during his presidency that could give him trusted people near him. Because I feel like if there are enough events where he saw, oh, these people are not directly misleading me, lies by omission, or leading me to think something else, I also feel like that could be a seed of doubt.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I agree with you that he had all these hostile relationships, but it was his fault. It's not like he was trying to communicate and work with these people in his best faith, and then they ended up all backstabbing him. Trump is the asshole here. He is the backstabber. He is the piece of shit. He's the one that abandoned his people. He abandoned everybody on January 6th. He couldn't even show up after he told his people he wanted to go there. He was begging the Secret Service, please let me go, and he didn't show up. Alex Jones was running around with the microphone saying, Trump's gonna be over there, blah, 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 and he didn't. He was sitting in the Oval Office stewing the whole fucking time. Like, I mean, like, Trump has backstabbed like every fucking person that is like almost every person that's like ended up working for him. And he even tried to backstab his own attorney general when he told Clark to go tell Rosen that if Rosen didn't sign under some bullshit letter, he was gonna fucking fire him and install Clark instead. Like, I agree with you that people are mean, but it's not like people were mean and then Trump didn't trust them. Trump was an asshole to everybody, and then people were mean to him in kind. But that's part of being a politician. That's part of being a CEO. It's part of being a man. It's part of being a human being. That's what happens, right?
I agree. No, I'm not going to sit here and be like Trump was an angel. He was a jackass. He probably he's probably the driving reason why a lot of these people did these things to begin with. I mean, I remember you were reading through the documents and the general in charge of DC was upping up the reasons or the process for deploying the National Guard because they were worried he was using it too much. Like, sure. He's the cause of all of the things that occurred to him. But just because he's the cause of all the things that occurred to him, he then turns around and gets angry at all the things that he caused. You know, he's stepping on a rake and hitting himself, with the handle. But I do think that it still isn't.
Sure, I understand you.
I say it's 60-40, yeah.
Okay, I understand your perspective. I just totally disagree. But listen, I understand.
That makes sense.
I'll give you I think there's like a 5 to 10% chance he didn't know. Maybe like a 5 to 10% chance, but like no more than that. But cool. Okay. Have fun. Be careful.
Right, well, that was it.
Bye. Flustered Aquinas, what do you got? Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. Give me a second. I knew as soon as I fucking walked away from my computer this would happen. Okay. So, do you think that Trump knew that he lost the election, or was he just trying to hold on to power?
Yeah, I think he's just trying to hold on to power. Yeah.
Okay. Really? Because I feel like in a lot of ways, he seems like he's kind of a narcissist who's not super smart, and he's just surrounded by a bunch of, like, yes men. Like, do you think that's a fair characterization?
No, clearly not. That's why he had to keep finding new yes men, because he was not surrounded by yes men.
Okay. That's fair. Do you think without the riot at the Capitol, you would say that he was attempting a coup? I would assume yes, right?
100% yes.
Okay. I don't actually have a lot of disagreements. I just had a couple questions I wanted to ask. But
okay.
Do you think that he, like, before the protest, do you think that, like, in his mind he was hoping that it would end up turning into, like, a riot? Because
you mean the protest in the Capitol building?
Yeah, like
Trump was 100% hoping that they broke in and killed lawmakers or killed Pence. 1,000,000,000%. Yes, absolutely he was.
Okay, that's interesting. I'd agree, I think.
Because all of it would have benefited him. All of the wackiness and all of the crazy shit going on. Him and Giuliani, and I think and maybe Powell, and there was one other person, were making calls to senators and congressmen saying like, hey, look what's going on. Shouldn't you guys try to delay? Oh, Eastman as well was making calls. Like, don't you think you guys should delay a little bit? Like, he absolutely was hoping that more shit would happen. 100%.
Okay. Yeah, and do you think that was true even before they like were starting to break in? Because I kind of feel that even with the language you see in his speech, I think he was probably hoping for people to do it even before like the protest started, like right in his speech. Do you think that there was like premeditation at all, or do you think that
He wanted to with his speech? Absolutely, of course, yeah. When he was giving that speech, he wanted them to go down and fuck with the process. Yeah. What else would they? What else was there? What else was there to protest? Yeah, of course. And he's telling people in the country that they're stealing everything from them. He knew that Pence wasn't going to do his cockamamie scheme because Pence wasn't being receptive to any of his phone calls. He wasn't being receptive to any of the suggestions. And he told him as much that he didn't have the constitutional authority to do it. Trump knew what he was doing the whole time, of course.
Okay. And do you think that people like Hawley and Cruz, who like really pushed the conspiracy and were extending the votes and stuff, do you think they're like culpable and maybe even like conspirators in the coup?
I would be very, 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 very careful. I would be very careful about accusing people of doing a coup if they were within their very clearly legally delegated rights. I would be very careful about making criminal allegations against those people. Or coup allegations.
Even when they're like violating norms to that extreme level?
Because I think in the Senate, I think Cruz did have the right to ask people to debate or talk about their certification. Cruz is a close one for me. I feel like I lean towards no, but that's like a 49-51. Like Pisco jumping into Discord could change my mind on that. I'm a little on the fence, but I'd fall towards like, listen, Cruz had the right to do it. That's fine. Fuck it if he wants to, yeah. But
okay, I will say I used to be a pretty conservative person and actually cringe posting, but watching you kind of change my mind on a lot of that stuff. It does seem like, especially with his like change to support Trump, even if Cruz wasn't explicitly like being a coup collaborator, it does seem like he's so like spineless that he would have just he was willing to go along with it, and that's probably what you need to like have a successful coup in these situations.
Kind of. I think
some people, yeah.
I think there's two things going on. Some politicians are going to publicly support Trump because they kind of need to, because it's the whole Republican Party is kind of basically following Trump right now, and if you don't, you're going to get fucking Cheney'd. Liz Cheney, right? Yeah. So there's that going on, so I can understand things publicly. However, if privately, people did surprisingly seem to have a lot of conviction about what was right and what it meant to like take an oath to the Constitution. So if Cruz would have been doing things privately, I'm not aware of those. If he would have been doing things privately to contravene, our rule of law, I would feel much differently about him than just like the public statements or the public elector challenge that he made.
Okay. Do you think that matters though? Like, even if people are willing to to say like privately, yeah, I don't think this is like a bad thing. If they're willing to just, I guess, cuck out for this guy so hard, does it really matter if they're in their heart of hearts, they don't really think he's doing the right thing?
I mean, does it really matter? I mean, no, you should stand up for what's right anyway, but I'm not going to be I'm not going to be the most unreasonable person. I am reasonable. And I understand you have to say things to get elected. So I'm going to be somewhat reasonable there. But yeah, so like if you make statements backing Trump, fine. If Shapiro makes statements backing Trump, after saying he didn't like him, fine. However, after all the J6 stuff has come out now, if you still support Trump, now I'm far more critical of you. But I don't think I would have been necessarily as critical when the election was being certified and everything, like at that point in time. But I'm being very charitable. I'm getting a lot of charity there to people like Cruz and yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem.